Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to tell the story of this polytunnel. Not so much the physical story, you've kind of seen that in the rebuilding polytunnel guide series. I'm laughing just thinking about all the things that went wrong. Oh my god, no. Oh, what the f***. Laughing thinking about this gaping hole that was caused by foxes almost as soon as I got the skin on. But I wanted to tell a little bit more about the kind of personal, I don't know, journey sounds a bit dramatic, but you know what I mean. What this polytunnel build has meant to me. Most of you will know, but some of you won't. I always get a steady trickle of new viewers asking questions about this. But this polytunnel belonged to Steve from the YouTube channel Green Side Up, who very sadly passed away before he got the chance to grow anything in this. It was pretty much mint. He just about got it built, and then, as I say, very, very sadly and quite suddenly passed away. So I'm sure you can imagine it's been quite a difficult experience. And today I just thought it would be nice to talk about it a little bit. Thank you ever so much for joining me. It has just started raining, which is quite a good excuse for me to just sit inside the polytunnel, get comfy, and tell you this story a little bit. I am going to have my phone today because I've made some notes and I just have to, because otherwise I know that I'm just going to ramble for maybe half an hour and it's going to be pretty incoherent. Please do forgive the mess. One of the running jokes on the channel has been about the polytunnel doors, which I am going to trim at the end of today's video. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why it's taken me quite so long to do those finishing touches. And we'll talk about the mess generally as well. But yeah, the first part, the actual story, like I say, mostly you will have seen that on the channel. If you've missed it, I'll link the playlist in the description. But the travelling all the way up to Cumbria in a van, I am so lucky that I had my lovely fiancée Jess to help out, because I absolutely would not have been able to dismantle this thing by myself. It was a mission, you know. Steve had built it to last, and it was one of the hardest days' work I've ever done. You know, we had a very limited window to get it done. We had to be quite delicate, try not to put any holes in the plastic, because my whole thing was I wanted to recycle 99% of it. The only thing that we couldn't save was the battening around the bottom. And I had so many people saying, JB, there's no way you can reuse polytunnel plastic. You know, once it's been stretched out, that's kind of it. You're not going to have enough to be able to pull. And that's why there's still all that stuff around the doors, because Steve hadn't trimmed it. And if he had, then we would have been out of luck, I think, because we wouldn't have been able to get the purchase to pull the skin tight. And we probably actually would have had to buy all new plastic. One of the most beautiful things throughout the whole process has just been the lovely supportive comments. You know, the comments saying that Steve would be laughing at my failures, you know, rooting me on the successes. That mixture of kind of congratulating me for milestones and also laughing along at my mistakes with me has been wonderful. It has felt like a really nice community experience, which was the whole idea of kind of getting this specific tunnel. And one of the main things that I kind of wanted to talk about, and one of the main things that I've been putting off, the main message, or like, I think the thing that will maybe surprise people, or maybe it won't, I don't know. But when Anne, Steve's widow, first got in touch, told me about the tunnel, and that Steve had said he would love to see how many chilies I could grow in this thing. That was his kind of message. My initial reaction, I didn't want it. I was actually, I was so close to saying no. And it was mostly my fiancée Jess who kind of talked me around and said, actually, I think it will be a really nice idea. And there was a few reasons that I wanted to say no. The work was a part of it, you know, driving all the way up to Cumbria. That's like a 6-7 hour journey with a van, hiring a van, all that stuff. The actual work of dismantling it, that wasn't so much of a concern. You know, I do like a bit of a challenge. I like to say yes to things that feel completely impossible. But the main thing was the feeling of responsibility that came with it, and the fear and abject terror of, like, you know, what if I completely destroy Steve's tunnel? You know, what if I get it completely wrong? what will viewers think? There was a general kind of uncomfortableness, but there were a few things that kind of won me round, and the main thing, to be honest, was just thinking about what Steve had said when Anne literally said to me that Steve said he wanted to see how many chilies I could grow in this tunnel. That is a very, very difficult thing to say no to. The mixture of that, the idea of having the tunnel here, of course, as well, was a very pleasant one. Although I did wonder if it was a bit too big for the plot, but now it's here, I think it's fine. But the main thing is what I've already touched on. I thought it would be really nice for our tiny little gardening YouTube community to see the tunnel kind of live on, you know? And I don't know if that sounds a bit poncy or a bit much, but that was the main thing for me, because I could have got my hands on a tunnel, you know, I could have done this by myself. It could be the same tunnel design from First Tunnels. It could have been the same size, but the whole thing was that I wanted it to be Steve's tunnel. This is Steve's work around me, you know, certain bits haven't been touched, lots of it hasn't been touched. The framework, especially like the door frames and that kind of stuff, knowing that they were built by Steve's hands and they've been repurposed on this plot is, it just means quite a lot, you know. And a lot of this project for me has been about, and it was exactly the same as soon as we got there on the day at Steve's allotment, a lot of it has been just getting my head down and working on it and trying not to think about it too much because it slows you down. And this is kind of what this whole video is about. It's a bit of a farewell to the Polytunnel project as a project, and starting to think of it less as a project and a thing to do and more of a thing to be enjoyed, although of course there will still be lots of work in here. Now I sat with that decision about whether or not it was the right thing to do for a really long time, and I so nearly said no, but I'm so glad I said yes. I do think it was the right decision, you know, not just because it's here, it's a lovely warm temperature in the tunnel while it's a bit chilly outside. At the start of spring, everything's starting to grow, it's just started raining, so it just feels so nice in the tunnel. And don't get me wrong, I didn't enjoy building this. I really didn't. It was a bit like the greenhouse project. In my memory, anyway. Maybe it was, I don't know. Now, okay. So we've got a problem. We've got a slight problem. It'd be interesting to see going back at the videos, but this was not a particularly, I don't have fond memories of building this thing, you know. Just come over to this side, and I didn't know until now, but apparently this end is much taller than that end, which means I've got to dig these poles in to the point where they're bloody level with the ground. Look at the size of this. That is a lot of digging, and I don't think I'm going to get all of these done today somehow. It was more difficult than I was expecting, actually. I thought a polytunnel would be much easier to put up and much less work, and I got that one quite wrong. But here we are. I love this thing. I absolutely adore it for both the physical space, but also kind of what it represents. And once again, it sounds a bit twatty, to be honest. But the kind of emotional challenge that went into this, the decision, visiting Steve's plot, what it just all means, you know, as a whole, is something I am quite proud of, which is something that's quite difficult to say, and one of the reasons it's taken me so long to actually make this video. This was really, more than anything, about carrying out Steve's wish, and hopefully people will continue to watch my videos, they will see the tunnel, and it will be a little bit more of Steve's already amazing legacy. You know, he leaves behind a wealth of information that people will be finding for years to come on YouTube. He leaves behind inspired people that have taken his advice to heart. It's difficult to talk about, but I know the audience watching will understand exactly what I mean. And so with all that said, I think there's just a few more last bits to do on the tunnel, isn't there? And the first is this little sign. Jess actually got me this as a present for my birthday towards the start of February, and for the longest time I wanted a sign, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it. And it's one of those things that when you start thinking about you you worry that you're going to get it wrong, you worry that, you know, you end up kind of trapped in your own head and you end up not doing it. So I'm so thankful that Jess was able to bite the bullet. It's just really nice and simple, you know, green side up. And then I like that it's got Naturally JB on here, just in case people think I've stolen the YouTube channel name or something like that. And I'm going to put this up and it will just be a nice little reminder of the legacy of this tunnel, a nice reminder and prompt to remember to plant things green side up as well. So I'm going to put this up and I'm going to trim the doors. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about why it's taken me quite so long. I did spend an awful long time wondering exactly where to put this sign, but as soon as I got this polytunnel skinned over, one of my favourite shots immediately became this one of me walking into the tunnel and going, oh, it's so nice in here compared to outside. So I thought that will be a recurring kind of thing on the channel and you will pretty much always be able to see the sign. One more thing to do. There we go, just like that. The polytunnel is officially finished. But what took me so long? Why did I wait so long to do this last little job? The reason it isn't practical is definitely emotional. But what exactly that emotion is, I've struggled to place myself, to be honest. When I came to sort of write this down, the first thing I wrote down was that in some way it felt like having this polytunnel project was keeping a little bit of Steve alive, you know, which I realise sounds ridiculous in many respects. Maybe some people will understand, but it was kind of carrying out something that he wanted done, you know. Felt like I was in some ways still doing something for him, which is silly because the project ended a long time ago, but not putting a full stop, you know, under it felt like in some way it was fulfilling that. But it is silly in many ways because you know, this isn't what keeps Steve alive. This little project that I have rebuilding his polytunnel, what keeps him alive is the advice that he's given, the legacy that lives on. I already mentioned earlier, you know. And another small part of it is that I wanted it to look pristine. You know, I had an image in my head of having the bed all freshly ready to be planted into, having everything tidied away, not having like rubbish and stuff around. But it's a working polytunnel, isn't it? There's always going to be piles of stuff lying around. It's always going to be a work in progress. Steve's own polytunnel was a testament to that, I think. In summer, it will look fantastic and it will maybe be a bit tidier, but I think it's just better to actually embrace that it's always going to be a little bit rough around the edges on the inside anyway. I think really the difficulty has been as soon as I had it in my head that I would be making this kind of video, doing the doors as a final thing. It feels a bit to me like another goodbye, and I think that's really why I've been putting it off. Once again, quite silly, but I hope wherever you are, you will join me in raising a glass. I don't actually have anything with me, but you know, a figurative glass to Steve, in Steve's memory. And I hope you agree that his legacy will continue to live on for a very, very long time in everyone's gardens. I also still have another Steve project to finish, which is the Steve sweet pea bed. So in some ways, it's even more silly for me to feel like this because I've still got more things on the to-do list related to Steve, but there we have it. An emotional end to a very long-running emotional project. Thank you so much for indulging me in this one. Hopefully I'll see you again very soon. An extra special thank you to all of my Chili Pepper tier patrons: Tony, Bill, Pam, Louise, Mel, Michael, Denise, Socks in the Garden, Andrew and Sarah. Without the patrons, this project genuinely wouldn't have happened because I wouldn't have been able to afford the van hire and the overnight stays in Cumbria. So thank you, everyone.